Hi, good morning. So it's just coming up to 8 a.m. on the 10th of July 2021. And every week at 8 a.m. London time, we do a webinar specifically for our developers or members. So thank you to that webinar. So I'm just going to essentially jump straight into it. So every week, sorry, I'm just going to pause that. So every week we just do a quick recap of what the ZP Developer Zone is. So the ZP Developer Zone is a webinar that's specifically for our ZP Developer Zone members. We have the Academy up, we have the Developer Zone up. We do these webinars every week. We have collaborations. So we have a collaboration warming up in the United Kingdom at the moment. So I'm talking to Newcastle University, and I've spoken to the professor there, and we're starting to prepare the idea of having one of our ZP Developer Zone members come and do a program with us in the United Kingdom. So so the ZP Developer Zone, we definitely do collaborations. There's one ZP Developer Zone member actually in the United Kingdom at the moment, who essentially is working with us, and as I say, we're talking to another university to set up a new ZP Developer Zone members collaboration, and that gentleman will hopefully be able to join us. And as I say, we talked to the university just yesterday, so just want to kind of give you an update on those collaborations. Now, the ZP Developer Zone is actually driven by the forum. So the forum is a part of the ZP Developer Zone website where people ask questions, and it's been pretty intense recently. We've had a lot of questions around, there's questions about sweat, microfluidics, cortisol, and we definitely did a lot of material, we did a lot of work around that. And also we've been doing a lot of work on reference electrodes, silver chloride, and their potential inhibition of DNA. So that's also been part of the forum recently. I just want to give you some news that's kind of relevant to the ZP Developer Zone. So if you haven't signed up, we're doing a webinar with USN, which is a university in Norway. We have really strong ties to this university because if you visit ZP, this university is only a couple of miles away from us. Great. So we've also got a new member this week. I just want to highlight. Ahmet has joined us, and I'm doing a little bit of a talk specifically around Potentiostats today. So some other news that might be interesting to you. Unfortunately, this one is paid for. Well, they paid for. This is run by Elsevier. Tony Turner, who Ali knows, is one of the sort of academic leads in biosensing, and he runs a world congress, and we're lucky enough, we have good relationships with Tony, and we're doing the opening slot, let's say, for the Biosensors 2021 conference. Also, something else that we're going to change a bit, we're going to do a much more detailed newsletter. So if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, please do, and we'll start putting a lot more material up into a sort of more of a read it and watch it newsletter. Also, I knew that one of our members was actually struggling to find how to join in this live webinar, so I've put a link in that. If you want to join this webinar, let's say live, there's also a link. Now all these links end up in the comment section below after this video's been aired, so you'll be able to find these links. Just a bit more news from Zimmer and Peacock. So Zimmer and Peacock, we have a significant new lab opening in Coventry. We have in Horten, Norway, we have 3 labs. One at USN. We have one at Coventry. We have one in Horten, USN. We have one in a lab we call ZPC1, and we have a lab in something we call HIP. So this is the HIP lab, which is great. We have our ZPC1 lab, which is this one. We've just opened up a whole new section of lab space in HIP. So essentially for just one of our labs, we've just increased the footprint by 3 times. And the reason we've done this is, at the top of this, I talked about collaboration, so if you watch us at ZP, we're always, looking for new collaborations. So we literally have opened up biggest lab space in Norway to deal with, tens of collaborators that should be coming to us this year. We knew the lab wasn't big enough, so we've actually increased it by a substantial amount. So I just want to kind of announce that, we've increased our lab space quite significantly. We already had a nice lab in one of the buildings, and that particular lab has now been expanded to be 3 times its original size. You can see it's pretty plush and modern. So hopefully some of you will end up there. And to celebrate it, the guys got themselves some extra pipettes as well. You can imagine, it's no joke, but you can imagine how much work is actually going on with us. So obviously we don't want to be limited by anything. Just Hasim has just joined online, so I just want to say Hasim is one of our longest members of the ZP Academy, and actually say he's one of our founding members, so it's lovely that he's joined us online this morning. So just to say, Hasim, we've just tripled the size of one of the labs that we have in Norway and filled it with lots of new fresh pipettes, because obviously you can't have lots of new people coming in and not have all the pipettes waiting for them. Now, we do have a new member, and I'm pretty pleased that he's actually watching the live stream today. That's Ahmed. Now, at ZP, we're big fans of Potentiostats, but this is, I kind of, I'm not going to call this Potentiostat expensive. I actually think it's very good value. That this Potentiostat that we sell on the ZP website, I think for R&D it's one of the best value Potentiostats on the market. But of course, for some markets it's still too expensive. Exchange rates fluctuate and change a lot, and sometimes 855 euros can be too expensive. So we're quite interested in ZP and actually making Potentiostats. So this is an unpopulated board, so Ahmed will immediately look at this and say, you haven't got any chips on it. No, we're about to populate it, but it gives you a sense of how small we can make a Potentiostat, or we can make electronics for biosensors anyway. So at Zimmer & Peacock, we love a biosensor, and I'll sit here week after week talking about DNA detection and glucose detection, PCR, polymerase chain reaction, and immunosensors. But we're also just as keen on the electronics, and I'm glad that Hasim is here as well, because at ZP our real mission is to disrupt the biosensor world. We want as many good biosensors on the market as possible, and the ZP Developer Zone is really part of that mission. It's to help coordinate and train and support people who are interested in biosensor development. Now, I want to talk about open source Potentiostats just very quickly. And now there's a link, and I'll put the link, as I say, as sort of underneath the YouTube video when after this thing. But I mean, at ZP, we have looked at open source Potentiostats. Now, Ahmed doesn't need to be told what an open source Potentiostat is, but if you're not sure, the open source Potentiostat is essentially something that's often been put together by an academic group. And here's a list of open source Potentiostats that at least we reviewed a couple of years ago. So they've often been put together by a academic group, and it's not, and yeah, they've put all there, and they put all the designs out there. I just got a little comment from Ahmed. He said it's so small than I can imagine. Yeah, Ahmed, it's true. Potentiostats, literally. I mean, we've made that Potentiostat the size of our fingertip. It could be smaller. The question is, does it need to be smaller? So at the moment, yeah, Potentiostats, literally, I mean, I could use that for scale. You can make Potentiostats that kind of size. Just the question is, does it need to be any smaller? Could be one of the comments. Now I might be suffering a little bit from bandwidth issues, but I will carry on anyway. So we've reviewed all the Potentiostats on the market, and we think that all the let's say open source Potentiostats. Now at ZP, we're very interested in supporting people in the development of their open source Potentiostats. That's why I asked Ahmet to join, because these open source Potentiostats, we think that most of these Potentiostats will actually give out a file that is CSV, that's comma separated variable, or text. So what we're doing is we're trying to collaborate with people and say, look, if you're making an open source Potentiostat, then we want to make it so that you can run your experiment on the open source Potentiostat, and then you can upload your data to Julie, and Julie will then allow you to visualize the data and to analyze the data. When you look at a commercial Potentiostat, you have the electronics and you have the data capture and the data visualization, and then you have the data analysis. Now, what sometimes holds open source Potentiostats back is not the electronics, it's actually the software, and specifically kind of the post experiment data analysis. Now, I've asked a few of the guys in the developer zone, if you're developing an open source Potentiostat, let me have a look at the files, because I want to figure out a way of guiding developers of open source Potentiostats. I want to be able to guide them and say, if you give us the file format like this, you'll then be able to upload your data and analyze your data in Julie and manipulate it. So if I kind of just wind back a bit, I think, if you're looking for, let's say, an easy life in Potentiostats, then I definitely think that the Sense Smart is the best value Potentiostat on the market at the moment for biosensor developers. I also appreciate that it's great value, but even still, it's sometimes too expensive for some regions. That's why we're keen on open source Potentiostats, and if you want to find a review of all these Potentiostats, you can find it on the ZP website. Now, as I say, I'm particularly interested in helping people with open source Potentiostats because there's lots of people who could do the electronics, but the software is, again, just another, it's another big project just in itself. But of course, if I can work with people, we can work with people doing open source Potentiostats, then we can try and put out a protocol or a document that will guide people making these Potentiostat developments to be able to give their file out as a text file or a CSV that they can then upload to Julie, and then Julie can can do the visualization and the analysis. So I'm just going to change tack slightly now and just talk about Julie. So I'm going to drag something onto my screen. So I know many of you hopefully now have these Julie accounts. So go to knowledge base, click on Julie. This is where you register and log in. I just want to say I've put some more data up last night. I put some voltammetry data up there because I just want to kind of share with you the sort of idea about how Julie can work with open source, let's say Potentiostat. So I put some voltammetry data up there last night, so you can download that and essentially use that to play with. So I'll maybe just do a quick download of that. Now I'm actually going to go to Julie itself. So I've opened up my trial. Sorry, just drag this back on. Yeah, let me just drag that back on. So what I've done here is I've opened up a report. So what we're hoping is that, not hoping. Yeah, the question is, can we also do chronoamperometry in data? The quick answer is we can also do chronoamperometry in Julie as well. So I will first of all just show you voltammetry very quickly. So it's just going to my downloads. I've got to think where I've put that data. Right, so I'll just open this one up. Right. So the quick question is, can it do chronoamperometry? And it can do chronoamperometry as well. But I'm just going to do very quickly, just show you that it can do voltammetry. I think I've got everything right. Yeah, there is voltammetry, so now we can get in there and analyze voltammetry. So if you were making an open source potentiostat, you could essentially do the visualization and data analysis in Julie. Now the question that just came through whilst I was doing that was, can we also do chronoamperometry? We can, so there's some chronoamperometry data for you to play with on the website. So I'm just downloading that data now. So what I'll do is I'm just going to upload some chronoamperometry data. So I just downloaded it off the website A7, and then I'll go to properties. This is continuous data. And it's more about and that's it. That's the chronoamperometry data. So the quick question that came through, Hasim also said nice results. What Hasim is a particular expert, I would say, on voltammetry. He uses differential pulse voltammetry a lot, but they are nice results, Hasim. But the quick question that came through from Ahmed was, can we do chronoamperometry data? So I was able to very quickly show you. Now, Ahmed, the reason the data looks like this is because we've essentially we've allowed, we've put the solution on the sensor is equilibrated, and then we've added glucose, and because it's a glucose sensor, the signal has jumped up significantly. So I will go back to the sort of vision that we have at Zimmer and Peacock. And so the sort of vision we have at Zimmer and Peacock is, developers of open source potentiostats, they've often got an electronics background, so they can make a good start on the electronics, but they won't necessarily always have the time to do all the software part. But of course, if people are interested in this, then Zimmer and Peacock can put out sort of a document about how to do the file format, and as long as you follow that file format from your hardware, let's say, then you should be able to upload the data to Julie and then visualize the data in Julie. And at the moment, you can see it on our website that we can do chronopotentiometry, chronoamperometry, EIS, and voltammetry. And so, Julie should get more and more powerful. And I know that a few of the developers' own members are starting to learn Python, and I would encourage it. If you're kind of looking for, let's say, part-time engagements with Zimmer and Peacock, one of the best skill sets to have is actually data science and Python coding, because that's the that's the thing we look for an awful lot. So now I will do a summary. So today I was going to do it a bit shorter because we've been doing some long webinars recently, and I think I can end up boring you all, so I don't want to do that. So let me summarize. So we have the ZP Developer Zone, fantastic. We had a new member overnight, Ahmed, and he's been extremely engaged in the chat today, so thank you very much, I appreciate it. You can see where we're trying to go with Potentiostats. And that did remind me, if you're particularly interested in Python and data science, that is the skill set we're particularly looking for at the moment. We do have these webinars coming up, so register for the webinar that we're doing with USN. We are particularly interested. We are interested in open source Potentiostats. We have quite a nice review on the website, but you can see that we have a definite vision that people who are doing open source Potentiostats, as long as they can engage with us and we can understand the file kind of formats that they have, or rather we can guide them to give us the right kind of file format, then they should be able to upload their data into Julie. And if you're kind of interested in, let's say, engaging with Julie, then the place to go, and I will put a link to this, is knowledge base. Click on Julie here. You can register for an account here. You can go to the Learning Center, and in the Learning Center you can actually find data that you can then upload and essentially, I want to say play with it, but yeah, you can upload it and play with it. Okay, so I appreciate it's 8:20 London time. Thank you, Ali and Hasim and Ahmet, for engaging with us this morning. And we do another webinar at 8 p.m. on Sundays. I appreciate it's a bit late for people in sort of Asia, but if you can make it, that's great. But otherwise, thank you very much. I'll just say goodbye to everyone on the chat. So we're just saying off for meetings. See you soon. All right. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.